Tonight, a closer look at what Ontario's vaccine passport system could look like.
We need to do this. It needs to be done urgently.
All three opposition parties getting together today to give their 2 cents on where it should be required and what it should look like. Plus,
I'm sad for him because I know that he really enjoys when he does get to play with other children.
why a nurse shortage could mean some medically fragile children won't be able to go back to school next week. And
it just makes me think like, oh, maybe one day, maybe one of us will be in the same opportunity.
they're cheering on our Paralympians at Holland Bloorville tonight. The watch party coinciding with the hospital's launch of its Dear Everybody campaign, a movement aimed at eliminating bias against people with disability. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Well, we'll soon have a better idea of what everyday life will look like as the province continues to rebound from COVID-19. It's expected the Ford government will announce details this week on a vaccine passport system. And today, all three opposition parties got together to give their 2 cents on what the government needs to consider and make clear when it comes to vaccine certificates. Our Lorenda Redicott reports.
It's still unknown where Ontario might require people to show proof of vaccination.
They come to me, I'll jab, I'll protect myself from the poison vax.
The system could mean the end to protests against business owners who've spoken out in favor of them, like these ones lately every Saturday outside a downtown Toronto restaurant.
Whatever helps us alleviate the pain points that we have with the pandemic would be, we're definitely game for it.
I know some people that once they found out that they needed it to travel, all of a sudden they were on board with getting the vaccine. So whatever kind of gets people on board.
No QR code. I think that's, I don't know, I just started using those like the past 6 months. They're not for everybody. It's not that user friendly, I don't think.
QR codes are generally the way these certificates are accessed. Today, Quebec confirmed it'll also bring in a paper version. Also today, a rare event by Queen's Park opposition parties coming together to talk about vaccine passports.
If Premier Ford hasn't already picked up the phone and called his counterparts in British Columbia and Quebec, and frankly, even Manitoba, then he should. And he should have that conversation today so that we are not trying to reinvent the wheel.
They say the government needs to be clear, communicating the details, including when proof will be needed.
When you go to the restaurant, when you go to the gym, when you go to the theater, when you go to the Blue Jays, to the OHL, to the NHL, to all of this, where will it be mandatory for you to show?
Ensuring that it's temporary, there's a clear sunset clause, so people recognize that this isn't something that's going to happen for a long period of time, that it's consistent across the province.
Many hotels and restaurants have struggled to stay in business and say they can't afford another lockdown. Their association wants to hear a tougher message from the Premier, who previously opposed the vaccine certificates.
I don't believe the government has come out strong in ensuring that they support vaccination control rooms, because we need it. We need it because soon we will be dependent on indoor rooms.
Sources tell CBC News Cabinet will meet tomorrow to discuss this issue, and the vaccine passports are expected to be approved. Lorenda Redicott, CBC News, Toronto.
Back to school season is just around the corner, and for some college and university students, this is the week they move into campus. This, of course, during a time of rising COVID cases. So we went to Ryerson University to ask students how they're feeling ahead of the new school year.
My high school did everything they could to make us feel a little bit the most normal we could.
It's been really smooth. It was a lot easier than I was expecting it to be.
I'm not very good with online classes, and most of my classes are online, so oftentimes it's going to be, a bit of a learning curve.
Ryerson is one of a growing list of post-secondary institutions requiring students and staff to be vaccinated. Submitting proof is being done through the Ryerson Safe app or on a desktop. And the province has updated its COVID screening guidance ahead of students returning to class next week. Runny noses, sore throats, and headaches have been removed from the list of COVID-19 symptoms. Now, the symptoms that remain on the list are fever and chills, coughing or barking cough, shortness of breath, a decrease or loss of taste or smell, and nausea, along with vomiting or diarrhea. Some parents of medically fragile children are speaking out tonight about a lack of nurses at schools. Their kids require one-on-one care with a medical professional in the classroom, but they say they've been told because of a nurse shortage in the province, their kids likely won't be able to start school next week. Afar Morali has more.
Want to hold mommy's hand? Oh, thank you.
Caden Duta was supposed to start junior kindergarten next week. He was born with a neuromuscular disease and needs a dedicated nurse with him in class. But his mother was recently told that might not happen.
What we have been told is that there is a severe nursing shortage in Ontario that is especially impacting home care nursing, which also provides school nursing. It's part of the same system. And so because of this severe shortage, Caden doesn't right now have full-time nursing scheduled for school.
I'm really frustrated.
Martin isn't alone. CBC News has spoken to 3 other parents, including Joanne Witt, who are in a similar position. Witt's 4.5-year-old son Hudson has a congenital heart defect, and he needs a nurse to regularly monitor his oxygen. But she too was told there simply wasn't one available.
I'm sad for him because I know that he really enjoys when he does get to play with other children. He needs to go to school for the socialization aspect because he has been isolated.
Today, hundreds of Ontario ER doctors signed an open letter to Premier Doug Ford demanding a pay increase for nurses, saying they're quitting in unprecedented numbers. The Registered Nurses Association of Ontario says it's been pushing the province to do more to retain them.
In particular, in home care, there is a severe shortage because, as you may know, nurses in home care, they get paid significantly less than in hospital care.
In a statement, the Ministry of Health said the government will be spending $61 million to support the recruitment and retention of nurses through initiatives designed to expand enrollment in nursing education programs.
Our agency who provides our night nursing is, looking through all their thousands of nurses to see who has availability and who might be able to do this, but nobody can create nurses out of thin air.
For now, it's all hands on deck for Martin, who says she won't stop trying to find a solution.
Caden, how old are you? Yeah, 4.
Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
One of the most powerful hurricanes to hit the U.S. mainland has now weakened to a tropical depression. But Hurricane Ida leaves behind downed power lines, thousands of flooded homes, and destruction across Louisiana and Mississippi. Ida slammed into Louisiana yesterday as a Category 4 hurricane with winds topping 240 kilometers per hour. The storm surges were strong enough to briefly reverse the flow of the Mississippi River. It knocked out electricity for nearly 2 million customers across 2 U.S. states. Rescuers have been using boats and helicopters to get to more people trapped by floodwaters. Meteorologist Nick Cernkovich joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Nick, definitely feeling a lot more comfortable today.
Hi, Kelda. Well, on the face of it, the temperatures today look to be the same as what we had last week and over the weekend. But in fact, it felt a lot different, and all that comes down to the humidity. Let me show you the numbers today. The afternoon highs reaching about 30 degrees, but with the Humidex only feeling like 32 today. So shows you what we're dealing with here. I mean, over the weekend, we had Humidex values that were approaching that 40 mark, and now we're looking at both the temperatures, but mostly the Humidex that's come down quite a bit. Haven't seen much in the way of cloud cover today. A little bit of high cloud cover, but generally speaking, we stay at partly cloudy skies through the overnight period. Tomorrow, same story, partly cloudy skies into the day. And this is actually the remnants of what was Hurricane Ida. That should stay to the south of us. The most we'll see with this on Wednesday is a little bit of spillover cloud cover. For the next 24 hours, temperatures up to 26 degrees tomorrow. Humidex only at 29. We'll have your full forecast. That's coming up in just a bit.
Thanks, Nick.
Can Doris hold on? Will she even hold on for a medal here? It's looking like Wegerman is going to go to a second gold. It could be the Canadian, though. It is Paralympic record, and indeed a win for America's Wegerman. Doris holds on for a Canadian silver.
Canada winning another medal in swimming at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics. Danielle Doris just misses the gold in the women's 100-meter backstroke S7 event, taking silver. The 18-year-old native of Moncton, New Brunswick, dominated the first half of the race and finished with a personal best. And the Paralympics is also opening up a conversation about disability inclusion. Today, Holland Bloorville Kids Rehabilitation Hospital launched its Dear Everybody campaign for the 5th year, a movement that's meant to help in dismantling ableism. Ardell Manukduk has more.
They were cheering on our Paralympians inside Holland Bloorview tonight and celebrating the launch of the hospital's annual Dear Everybody campaign.
Dear Everybody, it's time to talk about ableism.
5 years into the campaign, Holland Bloorview is leading the conversation.
For so long, it's been something that's kind of just been swept under the rug. It was maybe difficult for some people to talk about, but it needs to be something that's more open.
According to a recent online survey of over 1,500 Canadians aged 18 and older, only a third could define ableism, and 70% feel that society sees less value in those that have a disability.
Honestly, every day in the community, going to school, even playing sports.
18-year-old Taylor Hansen has cerebral palsy. She dreams of playing hockey or doing track at the Paralympics and feels inspired as she watched our Paralympians compete in Tokyo.
And it just makes me think like, oh, maybe one day, maybe one of us will be in the same opportunity. So yeah, it's really, really exciting.
I like how there's a girl swimming with no arms, because that's really amazing. I'm like, how do you do that?
In previous years, the hospital's campaign encouraged more representation in advertising and media.
Every little baby step we make towards full inclusion of every single person of any skill, any age, etc. Every step we make, it's a big step.
It's back to school time, and here are 3 ways that kids and youth can be allies to their classmates with disabilities.
Spencer West is a motivational speaker. He says the only way to end the stigma is to have that dialogue.
People are afraid to make mistakes, and they're afraid to say the wrong thing, or they don't know how to ask the right question. And I think that's what Holland Bloorview is trying to do with the Dear Everybody campaign, is to give folks the tools in all aspects to have those conversations, to ask those questions in a safe space.
This year, Holland Bloorview is asking the public to confront ableism so that exclusionary activities or inaccessible public spaces are no longer barriers. Dale Manukduk, CBC News.
Toronto police are continuing to search for a second suspect after a daytime shooting inside one of the city's busiest malls on Sunday. Officers were called to the Yorkdale Shopping Centre for reports of multiple shots fired. Police quickly located one suspect after they tried running away from officers and onto a Highway 401 ramp outside of the mall. The 21-year-old man was arrested and charged with 8 offenses. No one was injured by the gunfire, but an elderly woman was hurt from a fall while trying to flee the scene. The mall was in lockdown for several hours while police escorted shoppers outside and searched the building. To the federal election now, and over the past few days, a number of Liberal leader Justin Trudeau's campaign rallies have been interrupted by angry protesters. Our Greg Ross looks into what may be driving the demonstrations and the impact they could have on the election.
It's dominated the early part of the election campaign. Last week in Bolton, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau had to cancel a rally for safety concerns when a number of angry protesters showed up. This type of outrage has surprised many voters.
Very not Canadian to do that.
We're supposed to be friendly, right?
I don't think that type of protesting does anyone any good.
Voters we spoke to today say it's not only un-Canadian, it's taking attention away from the real issues.
They don't speak for the majority of Canadians when it comes to this, right? But they have the loudest voices.
The impact.
This professor of political science agrees.
Is that we're talking about these protests and not about other issues that maybe matter a lot more to your average voter.
It's hard to pinpoint exactly why there is so much anger.
And some of it probably is a result of what we've seen of growing inequality, the concentration of wealth and many people feeling left behind.
Another explanation could be the flood of misinformation being spread online.
There's always been political misinformation, but again, the capacity to spread misinformation and make it look credible, I think, is easier than it used to be.
Samara Center for Democracy has been monitoring election-related tweets. According to them, last week, Justin Trudeau received the highest number of toxic tweets out of all candidates. His party received the most toxicity, and women from the Liberal Party were 5 times more likely to receive toxic tweets. This negativity could have an impact on future elections.
Particularly as these threats are skewed against women and visible minorities, we end up probably with a less diverse set of politicians because people will decide they don't want that and won't, be part of public life in that manner.
While the Liberal Party has been the target of the most toxic behavior, candidates from all parties have come together to denounce it. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
A live look now at downtown Toronto. It's clear in the city tonight. It's 23 degrees, but feeling more like 26 with that humidex. All right, let's go back to our meteorologist, Nick Cernkovich now. And Nick, Hurricane Ida now weakened to a tropical depression and moving eastward.
Well, Caldo, we watched Hurricane Ida make landfall yesterday, and now we're looking at the remnants of it as it moves up the eastern portions of the United States. Now, let me show you how this tracks over the next couple of days. Now, there is a look at the remnants of Hurricane Ida. As it moves northward, it's actually just going to go through what's called extratropical transition and basically becomes part of the larger weather pattern. But because we're under the influence of high pressure here and it sort of gets swept up in the upper level flow, it stays to the south of us. So starting tomorrow morning, we're looking at just a little bit of cloud cover down in southwestern Ontario. Generally, the whole system stays to the south of us. Into Wednesday, we may see a little bit of spillover cloud cover, but that's really about it. The precipitation should stay to the south of us over the coming days, and what we're looking at is just dominating high pressure here. It's giving us clear skies right through till the end of the week. Overnight tonight, down to 17 degrees in southwestern Ontario, 16 out toward London tomorrow. Also, a little bit more seasonal in terms of the temperatures, 27 in Windsor, 26 out toward London, and humidex values only a few points higher than that, so not much to speak of in terms of humidity. Same story for the Golden Horseshoe. Temperatures around 18 degrees through the overnight period. You're going to see these overnight lows getting colder as well as we move through midweek. Temperatures by tomorrow afternoon, about 25, 26 degrees with humidex values only up around 28 or 29. In the long-range forecast, as I mentioned, the thing to note here is not just the daytime temperatures, but it's the overnight lows as well. Generally speaking, there's a good correlation. As the overnight lows are lower, typically it also means that we've got less in the way of humidity. So you see dropping humidity here, also temperatures down around the seasonal mark, and lots of sunshine right through until the end of the week. Kelda.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. A Toronto bride received a pretty special surprise on her wedding day. The presence of her best friend and bridesmaid who wasn't able to travel due to the pandemic. The woman made an appearance as a hologram and even delivered a speech for the guests. Talia Ricci has her story.
I'd like to introduce you to one of Brittany's bridesmaids from London, Sarah Reddington.
Ring, ring. London calling.
Totally shocked, but also in awe.
This Toronto bride had a feeling there was a surprise in store on her wedding day, but a hologram appearance from her best friend was certainly not what she expected.
You see the full body, it's life size, and there's a wow factor to it.
Did you really feel like when that was happening that you were living in the future?
Yes.
Well, my aunts actually said that they felt that they were on Star Trek.
Thank you, Jeff. Husband of the Year.
Art Media is the company behind the technology, which they often use to bring celebrities and business people to stages and conferences around the globe.
We capture people in one part of the world and we beam them anywhere else in the world where they can have two-way interaction in real time with very little latency.
So this is how the hologram is captured. You can see there's a green screen behind me. And then this is what an audience could potentially see. Me on stage anywhere in the world.
Clients come to us for a number of reasons. One is obviously trying to get people to meetings that they can't get to otherwise, but a growing number of people are coming because they're looking to reduce their carbon footprint.
I don't think it's something you're going to be using to visit grandma anytime soon.
This tech expert says while holograms may not be accessible to everyone yet due to cost, he believes the demand for different ways to connect will rise, especially during and after the pandemic.
We've been living online for a year and a half at this point. And we're looking for a different sort of connection to one another. So this technology is speaking to that.
So I've interviewed hundreds of people in my career as a journalist, but never a hologram. So this is a first. Let's see how this goes. Hey, hologram.
Natalia.
In what ways do you think this technology still needs to grow?
Well, I mean, it'd be great if I were seeing you as a hologram as well. But, you know, we're probably the smallest scale hologram company out there in terms of the footprint we actually need to pull this off. And so, you know, the smaller and smaller we can make that, the more accessible it is to everyone in the world.
Let's do a little COVID bump out here. And we'll beam him out. Coming to you from the future, Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.